What I'm really concerned about, or actually I want to question you about, is who should be responsible for how a fighter prepares. And I know this is a very particular case for Daniel because he has his father. He has Don Charles, like you said. Don Charles will never do this with Derek or with someone else because Don Charles has a method, has a way. But it almost seems like he's lost the reign and the dad's taken over. And look, each fighter is different, and what's best for a fighter is best for a fighter. But in your opinion, who should be responsible for the fighter?
I wrote a book 10, 15 years ago about families and boxing. It's a very, very difficult situation. So every family who's around a fighter wants to support their son, their daughter, their brother, their sister, whoever it is. Family wants support, and family are crucial to it. But Frank Warren's always said it, and Barry Hearn used to say it a lot. Promoters are there for a reason. Managers are there for a reason. Trainers are there for a reason. They might have their critics. People might not like them. The family, they all might argue a bit. There might be difficult decisions to be made. But fundamentally, they're in there because they're experts. You have an accountant because the accountant knows more than you do. You have a lawyer because they're better at law than you. It's sort of common sense. You have who you have. The trouble sometimes with boxing is because families have raised their kids, or in Daniel's case, his father from a young age, but others, Enzo Calzaghe, raised his son Joe, and from a young age Joe was a fighter, so Enzo trained him because it sort of made sense, and Enzo was a sort of trainer, and then they sort of worked at it over the years, and there was a time where people felt Joe needed to leave Enzo to become a better fighter, but he stuck with his dad, and they had an incredible relationship from start to finish, 46-0, and Joe couldn't have done it without Enzo. But then there's the difficulty of, if Joe hadn't been as good a fighter and Enzo would have had to have made difficult calls in the corner, that's hard. And when you've got a Don Charles and a Daniel Dubois' dad in the corner, well, one of them's going to think, he's my son in there, I don't want to see him getting hurt. And the other one might let him go on a little bit longer and give him more of a chance. It's difficult. And I think the thing with families, for me, our families should always be supportive. I love what Nigel Benn has done with Conor. He hasn't got too involved. He's let the trainers do their job. He's let Eddie do his job as promoting. And he's come in and he's supported when he's needed to, not sort of overbearing. And we saw the problems with Chris Jr. and Senior, when Chris Senior was sort of there and thereabouts with Junior, and now he sort of moved away. I think now they'll relook at their relationship, because ultimately a father and sons, or a mother and sons, or a brother and sisters, or all those sort of relationships are a key in life. And I think it's really hard when you're getting involved in a profession together. It's really difficult. So I wrote my book on fathers and sons. Sometimes it works, fathers and sons as trainers. Sometimes it doesn't. I think families need to be there to support their fighters as much as possible. Crucial. We've seen it with Adam Azim's dad. Very, very involved. But he's got a trainer to do his work. He's got wealth management people to do their work. He's got psychologists to do their work, communication support to do theirs. So everyone has their specifics. You build a team around it. So I think families have got a very important part to play in a fighter's career, but not necessarily too overbearing and taking on a specific role that others maybe are more skilled and more experienced in doing. Do you think Don Charles and Frank Warren should say to Stan Dave Dubois, this is the time for you to take a step back? Or should it be Daniel to say take a step back? Or should it be Stanley and Dave, they call him Dave Dubois, right? Who has made his son multi-millions at the age of 27, should say, I don't care what you guys say, this has worked for us. That's the conundrum.
Look, how are you going to measure success? Are you measuring success at the fact that Daniel's 27 and a multimillionaire? Then look, job done. Then they should step back and they should let Don Charles, Frank Warren, or whoever the next trainer will be, if it changes, to then go, right, our next success should be undisputed. Our next success should be world champion.
But is that success saying, okay, this is the training team and we're going to allow you to do your role? But ultimately, I think they want to make their own decisions, and whether it's the dad, that's down to them. I think they've got to sit down and work out how to move forward. But Don Charles has got to be allowed to train. Riz Khan has got to be allowed to do his commercial stuff. Frank Warren has got to be allowed to build his comeback. and Dave Dubois has got to be allowed to be his dad.
100%. I agree.
It's almost like they've all got roles, and I think probably
Yes.
it's just all
I think,
become a
look,
bit.
you can even compare that to Usyk. Look, put his talents aside, put all of everything about Usyk aside. We've seen this team. He has his strength management. He has his cooks. He has his communications. He has a person who talks English with him only. He has all the, just like you said with Adam Azim. He has Kadra as his wealth management. He has this communication. He has you and Hugo for communication. He has this person for that. And I think Daniel, for him to, well, in my opinion, become successful, become world champion, is to get to that next. I think that's the next step.
Do you know where I learned this first with individual athletes? With Andy Murray. So Andy Murray had a coach, a couple of people around him, and his mum Judy, who was always there with him. And Andy was having good success, our best tennis player, but he wasn't winning majors. He was getting to finals and not winning them. He built a massive team, okay? A team where everybody had a specific duty. He had a trainer, maybe a co-trainer, he had a conditioner, he had a physio, he had everybody. There was a team that was built around him for success at big expense, who traveled around the world with him. But you could see over the next year, 2-3 years, Andy Murray getting the best out of himself because everyone had their specific role, including his mum. But his mum was his mum. Obviously an advisor, and she'd been in tennis for all her life, so a big support. But his mum, she wasn't his trainer, she wasn't his physio, she wasn't his cook, she wasn't his nutritionist, whatever. She was a part of the team, but not one of those specifics. And I think that's really important. I think if you're going to build a team for success, we saw AJ do it. Mm-hmm. AJ did it around, even like someone like Tyson Fury, the problems he's had with his dad. So he moves his dad away from it. AJ, very close to his mum, his dad in Nigeria, his mum, never had them anywhere near his corner. Always had specific people, Rob McCracken or other trainers afterwards, Freddie Cunningham, Eddie Hearn, the people around him, building nutrition, conditioner, building that solid team for success. Usyk, we've seen it. We walked into Gandia and there's 25 of them, but they've all got a role.
Yes. I think it's great that you bring up Usyk again. Even his strength and conditioning, there's 3 people doing 3 separate things.
Yes.
They each have a role. They're not arguing with each other, not saying this is better, this is that. And then and
it's great cost, Andy, right?
Yeah.
People look at it and say, my God, why is there a 25 entourage? I'd rather see a 25 entourage where they've all got something to do specifically towards Usyk's improvement and success,
100%.
as opposed to 25 people who come and cheer him on. Because anyone can have people that cheer you on or give you the bit of advice or bit of support from the sidelines. But if you want to be that best success, and I sat down with you in Gandia and I asked Alexander, how much talent does he have? And he said it was 1% talent and 99% dedication. And that dedication is not just down to motivation, as we heard him in the post-fight presser, it's down to discipline. Yeah. And that discipline comes from every single one of the parts in the team having a role to play, so that they provide the best Alexander Usyk on that night. It's all geared to that one night. That's why 24 times as a professional, he has been incredibly successful. Of course, he's got talent in abundance, but it's that discipline and it's the fact that they work together as a team for optimum results, and not one of them is a family member. I think it's really important that the right people who have the expertise in what they do. Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn are the brilliant promoters. They're the ones that match their fighters perfectly. The managers are the ones that make sure they get the commercial deals, make sure the promoter gets the best possible thing for them. The trainers make sure that they are doing their day-to-day work. The conditioners, the nutritionists, eating the right food, and so on and so forth. The therapists, the communication coaches, the lawyers, the accountants, the wealth management, whoever else you have, of course, all part of a team. And the team builds a platform, and it's very costly. So not all fighters can afford that. Some can only afford a trainer. Some can't even afford that on a regular basis. So it is about levels and how high you are and how elite you're going to go. But the elite fighters at the top end of the heavyweight division, it's all about who they surround themselves with.